In Sierra Leone, wars, hunger, and diseases have been the major factors that has led to the deaths of many husbands in many homes in different rural communities around Sierra Leone. Women who have lost their husbands are labeled by the world as widows.
I have 27 grandchildren that my late children left with me after they passed away during the Ebola epidemic. I don't have anyone to go to for help. My family members are all dead.
The effect of many women losing their husbands at an early time in their marriages has left massive effect on their living standards and well-being. Those effects have made major trails, especially on widows living in rural communities, as they have limited facilities to support themselves and their families, and the orthodox way of life in many rural surroundings have not made it any easier. In my curiosity to discover how these factors really affect these women, I visited one of the rural communities in the Tonkolili District that received heavy hits during the Ebola epidemic, and over the years they have had limited access to national facilities like electricity, good and clean water facilities, and many other national facilities that every Sierra Leonean is entitled to. Magbokie village is a rural community in the northern part of Sierra Leone, Tonkolili District. It is one of the villages that received high hits from the Ebola epidemic in 2014. Almost every family was affected, and many women lost their husbands and children during that period, while others lost their husbands during the 11 years war in Sierra Leone, starting from 1991 and ended in March 2002. These untold and forgotten stories have left those widowed women in the dark to wallow in suffering and pain.
My husband died during the Ebola epidemic, and he left me with 2 children. I was also pregnant at that time. Things has really not been easy for us. My husband's family, they all deserted us. I clear people's farms for pay, so I'll be able to provide for some of our needs at home.
Even though they can hardly raise money for their feedings, Alie Sesay has been struggling to see her children through school to get a better education.
My first child is in class 6 and the second one is in class 4. Seeing them through school has been difficult for me. I don't have anyone to help me.
Since the Magbokie village is a rural community that is far from what the modern world describes as a civilized society, there are no space for job facilities for residents. Most families engage in farming activities, but in the recent times, it was confirmed that their soil no longer yield great gain, and many residents living from the support of the few third-class families that can at least provide their daily feeding.
These widows are really suffering. In the country today, even those with husband are struggling. Not to talk about those without husband. Things has not been easy for these women. For these women to survive, they often credit from other people, but because they cannot pay back the money they credited, they hide from those that credited them, and that has shown the level at which they are suffering.
Children are left with no parents, and as such, the chances for a better and well-directed future is on the fall for them. Magbokie lost her 10 children during the Ebola epidemic, and she was left with the responsibility to care for her 27 grandchildren. as an old woman who lost her husband in 1991 and has no paying job, she was unable to provide for the welfare of all the children that were left in her care.
I have 27 grandchildren that my late children left with me after they passed away during the Ebola epidemic. I have been unable to take care of all of them. That's why some of them were taken away from me. Because I have no one to help me, I often beg people to help me with whatever they can.
Many legal rules are overlooked in communities like this, and widows like Magbokie suffer in the hands of her deceased husband's family members, who mostly violate her rights by forcefully grabbing the remaining properties from her because she is a woman, thereby going against Section 6 of the Devolution of Estate Act of Sierra Leone, which states that where an estate is survived a spouse but no children or issue, the whole of the estate shall devolve to the surviving spouse.
My late husband's families behaved to me in the way an enemy would. They have been fighting me for the 2 mud houses and other properties my husband left for me. They told me to leave the properties and return to my family home. But at my age, where will I go? Since my husband died, none of his family members have ever bothered to check on us or help us with anything. They also chased me out of my husband's house. Since the death of my husband, I and my husband's families are not in peace. So I have to leave the house and return to my family house to avoid further troubles.
Many women lost their husbands during the Ebola epidemic and were made to join the growing population of widows. These women have been left as single mothers without any help. Ramatu Kabia is also a resident in the Magbokie village, and her husband was a victim of the Ebola crisis. She was left with 2 children and a 9-month pregnancy. Because of her sick condition, she is unable to care for her children.
My husband died during the Ebola epidemic, and he left me with 2 children and a 9-month pregnancy. Unfortunately, I lost the 1 child. Because of my sick condition, I am unable to do any work. That was also why I sent my children to live with people who are willing to take them in as house helps. I survived through the support of some people within the village. I don't have anyone to go to for help. My family members are all dead. Most times I miss my children, but I don't have money in order for me to visit them in the places they stay.
Based on the awareness that we are raising, that they need more, they are more vulnerable because of the 11-year war that we fought in this country, and also because of what? The Ebola that ravaged this country, and also the COVID-19. You know, the people that are involved more, the people that are more deadly affected are women. You know, so we lobby around and say exactly how government to come to our aid, how our organization will come to our aid, to say exactly how we help these people.
Since my husband died, I have been the only one taking care of our children. I take loans from people to do my petty business, and afterwards I pay them back from the little profit I make. It is from that same little profit I make that I get to provide for my children. My late husband left me with 3 children. I have lost all of them. As you can see now, I am old and I am unable to walk. A man named Hassan Kabo was the one helping me, but he is also dead. Now I survive through the help of few people in the village. In order for me and my children to survive, I have to help in processing palm kernels and then sell the end product.
There has been conflicting opinions on what the rights of women should be in today's society. The world over, the right of women when it comes to properties rights after the decease of their husbands have been interpreted in many ways.
We believe we are raising the awareness at different quarters, at chiefdom level, section level, and national level, to see that their voice as widow be heard, because they are part of the Human Rights Charter that has to do with that Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and they are part and parcel of what we are discussing. And then it is part of our 1991 Constitution that the rights of everybody must be equally respected, and they as widows are not an exception to what we are discussing presently.
These widows are really suffering. In the country today, even those with husband are struggling. Not to talk about those without husband. Things has not been easy for these women. For these women to survive, they often credit from other people, but because they cannot pay back the money they credited, they hide from those that credited them, and that has shown the level at which they are suffering.
The 23rd of June of every year since 2011 has been recognized by the United Nations as the International Widows' Day, a day set aside to draw attention to the voices and experiences of widows worldwide. What effect has this day had on the living standards of these women in Sierra Leone, to be specific?
We need to raise the awareness. If that day was not recognized in Sierra Leone, coming June 23rd, we are expecting that this day must be recognized through the Ministry of Social Welfare, Gender and Children's Affairs, so that International Widows' Day must be observed. They cannot be observed, as you have already said it. We have June 16th, we have Women's Day, we have Youth Day, we have all these other days. And even if I can make a quotation done by one of our legends, he said all our days are observed, especially other days like Women's Day, Youth Day, but never we hear about what celebrating Slavery Day, because it has to do with that global threat, But yes, still we are urging, government, especially the Ministry of Social Welfare, Gender and Children's Affairs, so that come June 23rd, International Widows' Day must be part of the activities of June coming.
Different governments that have been elected to lead the people of Sierra Leone have claimed to ensure equality for all citizens in the country, but the vast gap on the access to national facilities and the infringement of the rights of many widows in many rural communities across the country have shown that more needs to be done.
All is not lost, and they are part of the process. All of us are human beings. Let them just pick up. Let them have courage and say exactly there is light at the end of the tunnel for them. As we are moving with advocacy, as we are doing things surrounded their welfare.
I am pleading to the government and any humanitarian body to look at us in these villages and help us. I want my children and I to stay together. I am begging the government and other charity organizations to please help me. We have nowhere to go.
One of the things is the approach they should use. Let them use a face-to-face approach in selecting the direct beneficiary as far as program concerned. So let them be right at the ground and say exactly how to use selection, so that nobody politicizes them, so that nobody we make a way out of that. Let them come themselves and say exactly which type of organization they are to implement such projects, so that they will not damp the beneficiary and something short will not happen that will hamper the progress of this video that we are discussing of.
With all the pains we have seen from the explanations and expressions of these women, the questions now are, who will see to their pains and suffering? Who will come to their aid? As Sierra Leoneans, do they have the right to better living as citizens of this country? It is time to not only look, but to see. These forgotten stories need to be revisited and loopholes need to be amended, because every Sierra Leonean is entitled to enjoy national facilities which should not be limited to certain areas, tribes, and communities.